Good evening, Colonel, and welcome. Good evening, welcome, and thank you. The boys have done an incredible job again, Colonel. Yes. Before answering your question, allow me, on the day after the celebration of the 65th anniversary of the National Armed Forces, to wish a happy anniversary to our fighting forces. While we were commemorating Army Day, they were deployed in various theaters of operation and continued to hunt down the enemy and do an outstanding job. As we saw in the footage over the past month of October, the fighting force in all theaters of operation and in all force groupings has done remarkable work. We can mention strategic logistical escorts and operations to supply the population. Offensive actions to neutralize terrorists and terrorist bases, as well as the destruction and neutralization of terrorist leaders whom we tracked and located for several weeks.
Yes, let's talk about the complexity of the operations we have just witnessed.
Regarding the complexity of the operations, it should be noted that during this month of October, we have specifically carried out air-ground operations. These are operations where units are deployed by air into a given area, either following strikes by our aerial assets or to carry out specific actions. The purpose of these operations is not only to occupy a given area or to control it or to recover equipment when it follows airstrikes, to confirm the neutralization of certain terrorists and to destroy equipment that remains in the area. The complexity also lies in the great need for coordination between ground units, between the different teams, between aviation, intelligence, and the various aerial assets. So that's what really explains why these air-ground operations are, in fact, somewhat complex.
And what is the estimated number of criminals eliminated?
Across all our force groups during this month of October, we can estimate that several hundred terrorists have been neutralized over the course of this month.
So, as we know, the combat forces have neutralized many terrorists and captured some of them. Are there many
of these terrorists who have been captured?
Yes, in total, we have several dozen terrorists captured. And, when we capture terrorists, it carries a certain significance. First, in the intelligence that we will gather from these enemies. Then, the exploitation of that intelligence will allow us to plan and conduct future operations. As for the legal aspect, judging these individuals who have attacked our nation, who have taken up arms against Burkina Faso, who have brought grief and suffering to our people, they must answer for their actions before the competent courts. So capturing them allows us to gather intelligence, prepare future operations, and hold these terrorists accountable before the justice system.
Colonel, we have also recovered equipment. What can it be used for?
On the battlefield, whether during offensive actions by our units or after airstrikes, we recover a certain amount of equipment. In the footage, you saw that special forces were deployed in several areas following airstrikes by aerial assets. All military equipment has a serial number and an origin. So collecting this intelligence already allows us to trace this equipment. Where does it come from? What is its supply route? And after our analysis, this can allow us to cut off the supply chain to determine who the accomplices or supporters of these terrorists are, and ultimately to carry out comprehensive actions that will enable us to dry up the sources of supply and to neutralize the terrorists in question.
And then during these operations, air assets were heavily utilized. So it's a major effort both operationally and financially.
Yes, allow me, of course, to commend the outstanding work being done by the Air Force. Truly, as you have noticed along with us, whether it's through fire support, intelligence gathering, logistical transport operations, or resupply missions, they are everywhere, working tirelessly day and night to help us win this war. But the effort is comprehensive. An action by a municipal police officer conducting a check in a store can help us detect threats. For example, that there are prohibited products which are used in the making of improvised explosive devices being discovered. As you saw over the past week, Customs did a remarkable job that allowed us to seize detonators and detonating codes. And all these items are taken into account in the composition of improvised explosive devices that terrorists use in the field. And this equipment was handed over to the Military Engineering Corps. When we are deployed in forests, we operate with forestry agents who know the different trails better, who guide our special forces, who guide our units on the ground to carry out specific actions. The National Police have operational units on the ground, occupy certain areas, destroy terrorist bases, and set up ambushes for terrorists. As for the Penitentiary Security Guard, I mentioned earlier the legal aspect of capturing these terrorists. It should be noted that this falls under the authority of the Penitentiary Security Guard, who, through the high security prison, is responsible for guarding all these terrorists that we apprehend. So that's what concerns the paramilitary units that are involved in the operations we conduct, and especially in the significant results we have achieved. Speaking of the other units as well, whether it's the support units, notably the Central Army Group, the operational units such as the Special Brigade and Rapid Intervention Unit, the National Gendarmerie, the Army, I also mentioned here the Air Force, and the Brigade of Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland. This is how, together, hand in hand, all the military and paramilitary units contribute to the fight we are waging against terrorism, and it is together that we will win. So yes, aerial assets are used a lot because of the distances involved and the nature of the terrain. There are times when we are forced to travel by air, but as I explained, it is a matter of synergy, a team effort by all the fighting forces that leads us to these results. This is an opportunity for me to thank the people of Burkina Faso, something that cannot be said enough, through the Patriotic Support Fund, who voluntarily, in a patriotic manner, contribute to enabling the National Armed Forces to properly equip themselves as they should. I cannot conclude without thanking the government, of course, led by the Prime Minister, and also the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, His Excellency Captain Ibrahim Traoré, President of Faso, Head of State, who has made tremendous financial efforts so that our army is remarkably and significantly equipped, as we have seen in recent years.
And finally, let's talk about the unified AES force. We know that a lot has already been done. Where do we stand at the moment?
As for the unified AES force, things are progressing very well. The integrated headquarters of this unified force is deployed in Niamey. In October, from the 14th to the 16th, we had the meeting of the AES Chiefs of Staff. The various Chiefs of General Staff from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger met in Niamey, where they discussed the operationalization of this force and its buildup. So this force will be made up of units from all three armies. We are really off to a great start. We have made significant progress in the future deployment of this force. In the meantime, the General Staff is already doing wonders with operations that have achieved certain results. So very soon, this force will be operational and will be deployed in the field.
We can't end this program without saying a word to all the forces engaged in the fight for the return of peace. What would you like to say to them?
To all the forces involved, whether military forces, paramilitary forces, or the volunteers for the defense of the homeland, I tip my hat to them and ask them to continue, as the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces has already said, to remain vigilant. To continue demonstrating the professionalism and bravery that the Burkinabe soldier has always shown since time immemorial. We are going to win this war, and together with the people, we will succeed. So this leads me to make an appeal to the Burkinabe people, these men and women of integrity who believe in their army, to continue to support the army unconditionally, to work hand in hand with our soldiers and together. Victory is certain, and to our enemies, the message remains the same: lay down your arms or perish.
And that brings me to the end of this edition of News from the Front. Thank you for watching.